And so, mm, all of life that is flowing through the human form is moving to return to the knowing of utter unity. So where there is any sense of individuality, that flow of life is never ever divided from the whole and is moving with momentum, a knowing momentum, ever towards the great goal, we could say, of the human life, the highest possibility of the human life, which is realization of true nature, which is moksha, liberation. And liberation is not someone getting liberated. Liberation is the recognition that you have never ever been bound. That bondage, that the whole idea of separation and being bound or contained is just a belief, is a limiting idea in the greatest sense. But it is never pure truth. God births God out of God. And that which is birthed is a unique flow that seems to be an individual, but that individual is never ever divided from the whole. And that flow of life, which feels to be you, is only ever flowing like a river towards the ocean. And only in the knowing of the vast, unbounded ocean of bliss is there eternal peace. The reason that this is all happening is not because there is someone doing anything, not because there is someone seeking, someone doing it right, someone doing it wrong. It's because it is the natural flow of life. Life as pure consciousness, to know itself and to ever deepen into more finer and finer values of itself. So much more profound than the mind can ever imagine, because the mind in itself is a limited context. Yes, it is consciousness. Yes, it is part of wholeness, of course. And yet it is such a small, limited part of the incredible, incredible divine reality. And yet the part that it is knows that it is never divided from the whole, and it's moving in a natural flow towards its highest possibility, its greatest knowing. And it's making that move, it's moving in that way because it already knows what it is, it already knows what it belongs to. So it naturally is being magnetized to what it truly, truly is, to come into this utter knowing of the oneness, utter unity with itself. It's not one thing coming into unity with another. It's more of a quality of remembering. It's a remembering all the way through. So everything that is happening as part of this divine momentum, this divine flow of life moving towards its highest and most profound possibility. There's no one doing that. There is no one controlling that. So this is why we cannot make a mistake. We cannot get it right and we cannot get it wrong. Everything that moves and changes in the flow of life is part of that great orchestration in order to move everything into a configuration that will offer the greatest and most profound possibility. We could say, for the soul to remember its true nature, for that which feels to be individual to recognize what it truly belongs to. We could say the jiva, the individual soul, is always Shiva, never divided, never ever divided from the whole. And this knowing is already in place, and it is this knowing that drives that natural pull, we could say, of the seeker to be seeking for wholeness, for truth, for freedom, to awaken to true nature. This pull, this momentum is so fluid and natural that no mistakes can be made. It only becomes tricky when that momentum, it can get obstructed. It can get obstructed when it bumps into patterns that play as conditioning, patterns that play as fear, as desire, as want. And when that natural flow, that natural momentum bumps into some kind of obstacle, then whatever needs to happen in order to clear the path, it's like a river that's flowing and it hits a rock and some sticks and leaves, right? It's still flowing and it's absolutely determined to make its way through, and it will keep flowing and keep flowing. And at some point, what seems like a barricade will collapse. The dam will burst and the river will flow with even more momentum towards the ocean. That's the natural flow. So nothing is ever out of place. And so as these words come, it is to feel the resonance always, because the resonance is the true perspective of seeing. The true perspective of seeing is seeing from the I am presence, seeing from the vastness that just is, seeing from the being the being, here now, and just watching as that flow of life is going to do whatever it needs to do. Even the obstacles that come in are part of the divine plan. They are an essential part of the divine plan because they offer this possibility to clear the way, to bring more flow, more grace, more light, more clear perspective shed upon the dream, more light, more illumination to what all this truly is. So there is not someone doing this journey. There is not someone that is controlling this. And such a big part of this unfolding is to feel that truth and to allow a quality of surrender, to let the flow of grace carry everything without the interference of the mind, imagining that it is controlling, that it could have done something differently, because it couldn't. Things can only be the way they are. And in this ever-present now, to dwell upon a past is to dwell in that which is not real. It is to be distracted by a story instead of being here right now in the great glory of what the divine grace is offering. And to be here is to never know anything. You cannot know where it is leading. You cannot know what it means. You cannot find a ground with the mind's ideas that want to stabilize and understand. You cannot find that kind of ground. The only ground that you can find is the ground of presence, the ground of knowing yourself. It is the only knowing that is true and sure, certain, is the felt sense of being here and the felt sense of knowing yourself. This is the ground of being. This is the heart of being. And this is the portal, the divine portal, the gateless gate, the pathless path into this vast, rich, golden landscape of consciousness that is the true loka, right? The true reality, the Satya Loka. This is existence itself, existing just as it is. So, the story is not reality. The story, the play, is not reality. It is a creation. Divine love births itself into its own creation. God births itself into God. We could say God births God into God. But God never leaves God. Love never leaves love. Despite appearances, do not be fooled. Do not be fooled by appearances, because being fooled by appearances and creating beliefs and following those beliefs is what trips us up and has us believe in individuality. So the mind can say, well, what is all of this? How does nothing become something? It never does. It is beyond the mind's imagining. The absolute God. It is unlimited in its possibilities of how it can manifest out of the unmanifest, how it can create the appearance of form out of formlessness. So it is not for us to try to understand. It is not to try to work it out. How does this happen? It is only ever to know the self that is true and open to the vast field of intelligence that is wisdom itself, that is beyond understanding, beyond mental knowledge, beyond acquired knowledge. It is to open to the self, to the vast, infinite, absolute field of grace that is intelligence itself, intelligence itself. A wild and radiant wisdom that just is. And as you open to this field, this infinite field of intelligence, then you are opening to true knowledge, pure knowledge, self-knowledge, knowledge of the self. And all that is required to carry you deeper and deeper into yourself is right here. It's right here. And it manifests great glory as your life. It manifests, it comes into manifest appearance as your life, as life itself in appearance, as the formless, unmanifest, uncreated, in appearance, as the manifest appearance of creation. Creation. It is the Divine Mother's song of humanity, the song of creation. It is the heart song of the divine. And as her song is sung, so creation appears. And creation appears as your life. And it appears as your life in this really, really simple and profound way. So that life gets to live itself. Life gets to live itself. Experience itself. To know itself all the way through. And part of that is to experience itself in concealment, in a quality of individuality, right? That is not a mistake. That is not a divine error to create the appearance of individuality. It is so that consciousness itself can experience itself in this configuration. And in this configuration, there is a flow that is happening that is untangling all the knots. There is a much vaster movement happening that is so much bigger and more profound than me and my life. Me and my life is just a flow of the whole that is conspiring. We could call what it's conspiring as part of is the age of enlightenment. So we are in service. We are divine vehicles in service. So much more profound than the mind can imagine. But as these words come, perhaps you can feel the resonance. Perhaps you can feel the resonance of this truth as the truth of who you are. Can feel the intelligence bubbling alive in recognition. It's not someone that is special. It's not someone that is doing anything. It is the natural order of life flowing in a momentum in order to remember the unity, its oneness. Because only when we truly come into this oneness do we come to a peacefulness. Do we come to a living abidance in true nature? And really, when we come to this living abidance in true nature, this is when the deepest work really starts to happen. This is when we are of most use in service. So we long to be in service, right? And the mind says, how can I be in service in the world? But your greatest service is to live in the moment, here now, and fall into the being, into the being. And so that falling into a quality of yourself where you are turned to the divine. And when you are turned to the divine, when you are turned to wholeness, when you are turned to the light, to the being, to truth, when you are turned to what you are longing for, you are then available for that, for the divine, for the light, for the love to flow through you. And how that starts to happen is that it brings up the challenges first because it's purifying. It's purifying the vessels. It's purifying the vehicles. She's cleaning up. She's tidying up. It's like she's, what's that called? She's detailing. She's detailing her vehicles. She's cleaning everything out, polishing, shining up every single little corner, crack and crevice of her vehicles so that she can flow through. And then you are of the greatest service, right? Once all the sticky, chunky parts have been cleared, then the finer, then we come to crossing the T's, dotting the I's, right? And that part, it goes on for quite a while in the play of time. And the mind says, more, there's still more. Yes, as long as there is work happening, then there's more to be detailed, to be refined, right? This is the process of refinement. It's the refinement of the vehicle. It's the refinement of that which feels to be individual and separate, that is focusing upon my life. It's surrendering all of those threads into remembering. It's weaving all of the threads of seeming individuality into the remembering of wholeness. And at the deepest root of our longing, it's all that we are ever longing for, is to be one with the wholeness that just is. And the longing is here because we already are this. We already are. You already are everything that is longed for. So as these words come, feel the resonance of truth, because you already are the resonance of truth. As you feel the resonance of truth, there's an enlivenment of the field, the infinite field of being. We could say the stillness itself comes more alive. The presence that is everywhere comes more alive, and you feel it as your own presence. And it is an alive presence, and a live presence that just is. You feel it as your own presence, and as you feel it as your own presence, and the focus of presence is upon presence, then the recognition starts to open that this presence is everywhere. This presence is still and unmoving. This presence is unwavering, undisturbable. This presence is everywhere, nowhere, infinite openness. You feel it as your own presence. And to start with, it feels like it is who you are as a mind body. But as the focus of presence rests upon presence, the stillness comes alive. And the felt sense is of this presence expanding. But what is expanding is your viewpoint, right? Your viewpoint starts here. And as your viewpoint starts to expand, it is because the focus of attention moves from the mind to the presence, and then presence to the presence. So it moves from mind to awareness of mind, and then awareness being aware of itself. So the perspective of seeing shifts. It relaxes from the small, narrow perspective to the broad perspective, from mind to presence, from presence to presence, starts to open. The direct experience feels like an expansion, but presence itself isn't expanding. It's consciousness. Consciousness is expanding. It's expanding through the focus of attention. Feels like a miracle, and in some way it is, as the focus of attention moves away from the object and focuses upon the subject. When subject focuses upon subject, object disappears, and there's just pure subjectivity. And that is oneness. It's openness. It's wholeness. It's the unified field that just is. The felt sense of being, simply being. And you can feel that your true nature is not the individual, but the individual has melted, has merged into what it belongs to. And you can feel in your direct experience that who you are, what you are, is this presence that is everywhere. You are the presence of being that is uncontained, unbounded. You are limitless in your true nature, everywhere, nowhere, undefinable, and yet here, so fully here, unquestionably here. And the felt sense is the same felt sense that you have always had of being yourself. So we could say that the individual, the person, it melts into true belonging. And the sense of that one does not disappear, but that one is part of the whole. And that remembering is here. The mind can say, well, the individual hasn't disappeared. But that's because the mind imagines things to be a way that they are not. The individual doesn't disappear, but the perspective of seeing changes from being an individual that feels separate from the whole to being the being that sees the individual and includes, contains, we could even say, the individual. Can see that one with utter love and compassion. You can feel that one. You can feel as if you are in the body and you are out of the body. You're not contained by the skin and bones and flesh of the body. You feel yourself as unbounded and free of body, free of mind. You feel your true nature is not disturbed by thoughts, not disturbed by body sensations. Can feel yourself as the stillness, as the presence that is wildly alive, just knowing itself. To feel the simple presence of just being here, before the first thought, before the name, before the story. You are prior to the content of experience. You are before everything. Feel your simple existence just here before any quality of becoming, before the first thought. The first thought attaches the pure aliveness of being through attention to the mind-body, where the I am presence then feels to be I am the person. But when you feel the I am presence before the first thought, you feel the vastness of existence, simply being. And this is the true nature. This is your true nature. The felt sense of I am, I am, I am. Just simply being, simply being. Even if the felt sense I am, I am, I am seems to be small and connected with mind-body, even if it feels like the mind is looking for this, when you just feel the felt sense, I am, you come to existence itself. It can start to feel like it is my existence, just like the feeling of my presence. But it is not limited to a singular point. Existence that feels to be your existence or my existence is existence itself. It's the one existence. It's before thought, before identification. It is the open field of life itself, just existence. So when you feel the simplicity of existence, here we are the same. Here we are the one existence, the one being that just is. We meet in the heart that is simple existence, which is the self. It is the being that just is. So to feel yourself here now, before the first thought, prior to anything, as the openness, as the being, cannot use the mind as a vehicle to get here, can only fall into the simple presence that is aware of mind, aware of story, aware of body sensations, whether they be comfortable or uncomfortable. You are the aware being that is aware of things. And as the attention shifts from focusing on thing, on content, on object, the aware attention falls into itself. To start with, we could say the witnessing consciousness is the presence that is aware of the moving, changing. And yet there's already a spaciousness. There's an opening in consciousness. You are aware of the mind, aware of body, aware of thoughts that come and go, aware of the environment, aware of sense perception. You're aware of the moving, changing. But as the awareness of, as the presence that is, you are not moving and changing. And as you notice this, it is to open the perspective more fully to being aware of your own aware being. And this is where the perspective really opens, as awareness is aware of being aware, as the presence is aware of its own presence. There's no mind involved. There's no me involved. The recognition is, this is all that is here. There is no story about this. There is no past here. There is no future here. Without thought, past and future do not exist. Without thought, story, my life does not exist. In this moment, there is no world. There is just being. This being just is. This being just is. Mm. Mm. To be the being is to be in the sanctuary of the self. To be the being is to be yourself. The openness, the equanimity, the vast open field that is without boundaries, without edges, without limit, uncontained openness. So it is to feel yourself here. Feel yourself as the stillness that is the presence of being. Feel yourself as the simplicity. Feel yourself just simply being, where there is no story, there is nothing other than now. And from here, as aware being, aware of itself, awareness can not leave itself and simultaneously be aware of appearance. So can be aware of the environment without leaving yourself, without sense perception reaching out, grasping out to evaluate and look for more information. Can just be resting here as your simple self, just simply being. It's not about bringing it back to the mind and the mind saying, but what if? It's about being here so fully that the mind surrenders itself into what it is truly longing for. And you feel the truth, the simple truth of being yourself. You feel the simple truth. And it is in this direct experience that is your own knowing, your own simple knowing, that there is an opening to the vast field of intelligence that is the true wisdom. The only knowing that has value is the knowing of yourself. And when you are resting here in the true perspective, then there is this openness to receive and receive and receive. Receive all of life as it flows. Receive the flow of yourself. Receive your own gentleness, your own simplicity. Receive your own grace. Receive the love that you are. Receive the peace that you are. Receive the miracle that you are. To receive your own wholeness, the wholeness that has never, ever been diminished in any way. You receive your true nature, that which is before birth. We could say is birthless, and yet there is a play where this eternal one births itself into an appearance of creation. We could say this true nature is both transcendent, the transcendent field, and immanent, right? That's where existence itself feels to exist. And this is what gives such a dimensionality to the play of life. So everything that is playing as life is consciousness itself creating an appearance in order to reveal everything that is required for there to be a refinement, a detailing of all of the areas that can pull the attention, can create a sense of identification, and can keep you away from yourself. Everything is conspiring to bring each being that feels to be individual into the fullest, most profound realization of what is true, of true nature. So as these words come, it is just to receive the resonance of recognition, just to receive the resonance. Feel that inner knowing that recognizes truth. It recognizes truth as a resonance of truth. Because this is your knowing. This is your knowing of who you already are and who you have always been. Prior to the first thought, before anything, here you are. Before any sense of becoming, this moment, this presence here now is who you are and is who you have always been. And the value of the truth of this, it is to drink in this truth, drink in the resonance through being with the resonance of recognition, falling into yourself and falling into yourself, confirming, verifying in your direct experience, in the heart itself, in the self itself, listening for the innermost being to whisper this truth, this unquestionable, doubtless truth. This is the true nature. This is the knowing. The knowing of the self is the self knowing itself, the being simply being. Mm. 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 Everything that plays on the surface of life is playing to dissolve the karmic obscurations, so that this truth can be lived right on the surface of life without being touched, without any veiling, removing the karmic obscurations, that which can pull the attention, that which can create a sense of a me and my life that is separate from the whole. Everything is conspiring to reveal this truth, to remove and release all of the stresses from the nervous system. As the stresses are released from the nervous system, which is consciousness itself, is refining. It is being cultured and purified in order to receive finer and finer resonances of true nature. It is sifting and alchemizing the density. When the attention is focused upon things, there's a stickiness, and life is conspiring to remove the stickiness, to sift out everything that can act as distraction, so that the focus upon what is true, the true purpose of the human life, can shine, can truly, truly shine. And it is just to be yourself, be the one with oneness, and watch. Just simply watch as it all unfolds. As you watch as the aware being, awareness itself becomes more and more aware of the subtleties and the quirks of the character, and shines the light of awareness more finely, more acutely on those quirks. And that is the light of awareness shining upon the discordant patterns, the conditioned patterns, in order to unravel them. Unraveling the habits, unraveling the conditioned protective ways, in order that more of the fine resonance of true nature can flow, animate the form, and live its fullness as love, as light, in service, right on the surface of life. So this is the process of refinement that is happening. When you are watching life and receiving life from the true perspective, then you can see what a profound service it is to allow this refinement, this detailing to happen. The falling away of all of the threads of individuality, weeding out the garden of individuality, and recognizing the truth that just is, that all flowers are nourished and born of God. They are all nourished from the same one source. All belong to the same one source. So weeding out this individuality so that there can be a true blooming, a true blossoming of true nature, of the heart. And this is all that is truly longed for the petals of true nature to open, shine their beauty, and That perfume is love, is love. The divine fragrance of love, so captivating, so intoxicating. It's what is longed for, and it is the true nature. And the more deeply you are connected to this truth, the more open you are, shining your radiance, the more that perfume of divine love will just naturally spread in and of itself. It's not a doing. It's not a doing. It's a fragrance, right? To come to the self, to come to the self, the true nature, is to come to the light, the flame, the fire, at the root of all longing. There is this fire, this blazing fire that is the self. And it is out of this fire that all appearance, that the song of creation dances out of the fire, out of the divine fire. It is to come to this fire of the self, the source, the divine source of all. The simplicity of feeling yourself here now, just simply being. It is to notice that as you fall into the resonance of recognizing the true knowing, the simple knowing, that the perspective of seeing just simply shifts. It's not to try to hold on to this. It's just to be this. Be this. It does not belong to anyone. You cannot grasp it. You cannot hold on to it. You can only be yourself. Every moment is now. Every moment is fresh. Fresh now. Always, always fresh. Being yourself. The freshness is the aliveness of being. Simply being. Always here now. There's no mistake ever made. You never leave yourself. It is just to come to here now and find that you are just here, just as you have always been, just as you have been in the eternal, timeless Satya Loka reality, the golden reality that just is. When you come to here now, here you are, just as you have always been, just as you have always been. And we could say the movement of all of life is to come to know its eternal nature, to remember its eternal nature. There's a quality of knowing already present, and it is flowing to come to this remembering. All of life is moving and flowing in utter perfection, in exactly the perfect divine orchestration, in order to know itself, to remember itself as the eternal, timeless being that it has always, always been. Underneath the surface play, underneath the the dance that seems to be knotty and dense and chunky and tangled, there is this truth that has never, ever, ever changed. And this is what all of life is conspiring to remember.